6:10 a.m., December 5th, 2025, Temryuk, Russia. $650 million worth of gas, steel, and concrete doesn't just explode, it simply ceases to exist. While the Kremlin is fixated on chaos at the Kerch Bridge, a seemingly harmless grain ship strolls through the back door of the Sea of Azov. But this isn't just 6 sea drones slipped off a freighter. Within seconds, the water gives birth to a swarm of 30 flying bombs that turn Putin's personal LNG cash machine into a 2.5-mile-high pillar of fire, visible from across Crimea. Ukraine has just demonstrated something terrifyingly simple. You don't need a blue water navy to burn down an empire's wallet. You just need a few cheap boats that can launch their own air force. 4:20 a.m. The Sea of Azov is a sheet of black glass. In the Temryuk coastal radar station, a bored Russian operator stares at a scope. The cargo vessel Star of Monrovia appears as nothing more than a green smear lumbering along at 12 knots. 15,000 tons of Liberian-flagged steel, allegedly carrying wheat to Turkey. But radar only tells you where something is, not what it really is. 48 hours earlier, a Ukrainian F-16 strike didn't just cut a railway line feeding the port, it shattered Russia's command loop. Every S-400 battery along the coast is staring anxiously at the sky, expecting more jets. Underwater sensor nets have been ripped up by previous attacks. Patrol boats are racing to protect the Kerch Bridge. Russia is guarding the front door, while the burglar quietly picks the deadbolt on the back window. 4:25 a.m., less than 200 meters from the LNG terminal's exclusion zone. On the starboard side of Star of Monrovia, just above the waterline, her cargo doors slide open. Gravity does the rest. 6 low, angular Magura V5 sea drones drop into the freezing water with heavy splashes and immediately peel away from the hull. These aren't the familiar single-warhead kamikaze boats the world has already seen. These are motherships. Bolted onto the aft deck of each Magura is a custom-built launch frame holding 4 compact 13-inch FPV quadcopters, rotors folded, warheads armed. Each quad carries a shaped charge designed to punch straight through armored steel or critical valves. Do the arithmetic. 6 sea drones times 4 quadcopters plus 6 main boat warheads equals 30 separate guided munitions in one package. This isn't a raid, it's a portable micro-carrier strike group. The control link is where the magic really starts. On the stern of each Magura, a small drum begins paying out a hair-thin strand of glass. 7.5 miles of fiber-optic cable spooled neatly under the deck. Russian Murmansk BN and other electronic warfare systems can scream across the radio spectrum all night, but it doesn't matter. You can't jam a physical light pulse inside a fiber any more than you can blow out a light bulb by waving a fan at the wall. For the first leg, the swarm is effectively invisible to the electromagnetic world. The package is wet, the drones are armed, and the hunt is on. For roughly an hour, the 6 Magura motherships ghost through the black water at 20 knots, hugging the surface and keeping their wakes to a minimum. The fiber-optic tether streams behind, feeding clean, lag-free video back to an operations room in Odessa. Operators watch the radar clutter, AIS feeds, and infrared overlays in real time. But about 12 miles from the terminal, the immutable physics of the plan kick in. The last coils of fiber unwind, the spools run dry. As the final meter snaps free and sinks, the Maguras automatically flip to their backup communication mode, a short-range, encrypted mesh radio network between the boats and the FPV drones. Unlike glass, radio can be heard. Aboard the Russian patrol ship Sergei Kotov, the passive electronic support suite suddenly lights up. The EW officer sits up straight. Multiple high-frequency spikes appear at low altitude over the sea, all clustered on bearing 270. He doesn't wait for confirmation. The alarm goes out. Contact. Unknown swarm. The Sergei Kotov and a second Project 22160 patrol ship pivot hard, bringing their AK-630 close-in weapon systems to bear. 6-barrel 30mm Gatling cannons begin to spin up, spitting tracer rounds into the pale dawn like angry chainsaws. In Odessa, the command room flares into motion. The quiet, controlled approach is over. They see us. Launch the birds. Now. On the heaving decks of the 6 Mura boats, 24 FPV drones come alive. The folded quads snap their arms out like mechanical insects waking from hibernation. Electric motors whine, props blur, status LEDs flick from red to green. One by one, the drones unlock from their rails and leap vertically into the night. To the Russian sailors on the Kotov's deck, the sight is surreal. Instead of sea drones charging their hull, the sea drones are spawning their own airborne swarm. The first wave of 8 FPV drones levels out at around 200 feet and accelerates to nearly 90 miles per hour toward the 2 patrol ships. Their initial targets are not the hulls themselves, but the eyes and teeth, the search radars, fire control directors, and missile modules. Sergei Kotov opens fire. The AK-630 spits a wall of 30mm tracers at 5,000 rounds per minute. The lead FPV, caught in the first burst, disintegrates mid-air. One frame of video, then static. A second tries to jink left, but the sky is so thick with metal and fragmentation that its rotors are chewed apart. 2 drones down, 0 impact. The Russian captain is competent and calm, keeping his bow pointed at the threat to maximize radar and gun coverage. It looks briefly like a slaughter. But swarms don't need to win on quality, they win on quantity and geometry. While the Kotov's gunners focus on the obvious straight-on approach, FPVs 3 and 4 drop to wave-top altitude, skimming barely 10 feet above the water. Hugging the sea surface lets them slip under the radar's depression angle and beneath the main arcs of the gun mounts. In the bridge, nobody sees them until it's too late. FPV-3 slams into the starboard bridge wing, its shaped charge neatly punching through steel plating. It doesn't sink the ship, but it kills the fire control director, blinding the main gun. In the instant of confusion that follows, FPV-4 ignores the bridge and goes for the real prize, the Pantsir M module bolted to the aft deck. The pilot flies straight down the missile rack and detonates. The resulting secondary explosion is spectacular. Roughly $15 million of Russian point defense hardware vanishes in a Roman candle bloom, triggered by a plastic quadcopter that costs less than a used phone. The price is steep. Out of the initial 8 FPVs, 5 have been destroyed before reaching anything critical, but Sergei Kotov is now burning, drifting, and most importantly, deaf and half-blind. The air defense umbrella guarding the approach to Temryuk has a gaping hole. The sea lane is not clear, but it is plausible. More importantly, the ship's radio operator has already done his job. A terse warning pulses inland. Swarm inbound. Defend the terminal. At the Temryuk LNG facility, sleepy overnight guards are abruptly replaced by an alert reaction force. 3 Zu-23 2-barreled anti-aircraft guns, hastily mounted on trucks, swing around to face the sea. Every soldier with an AK-74 is staring into the murk, fingers white on triggers. The second wave of 8 FPV drones screams over the shoreline at 90 miles per hour. Their mission is vital and far more subtle. Don't hit the tanks yet. Blind the firefighting system. Take out the foam pumps and specialized fire trucks that are the only thing standing between a serious fire and an uncontrollable inferno. The Russians are ready this time. As the drones cross the breakwater, the night turns into a blender. The Zu-23s hammer out a steady thump, 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 throwing curtains of 23mm high-explosive shells into the air. The Ukrainian pilot with the call sign Viper watches his FPV's feed dissolve into static as a shell bursts nearby. His drone cartwheels into concrete, dead. 7 left. They scatter, trying to weave through a dense forest of pipes, gantries, and catwalks. It's a high-speed chase through an industrial jungle. FPV-2 locks onto a bright yellow fire truck near the foam station. The pilot punches into a steep dive, but he underestimates the local wind shear. The enormous LNG storage tanks have created their own microclimate, narrow wind tunnels between tank rows. A sudden gust slams his lightweight quad sideways into a handrail. No explosion, just shattered plastic.
FPVs 3 and 4 coordinate on the main water pump house, coming in low, but the defenders have deployed a brutally low-tech counter, shotguns. A squad of anti-drone troops peppers the sky with 12-gauge buckshot. Against delicate propellers and plastic arms, it's overkill. Both drones disintegrate mid-air. 4 down.
Panic starts to creep into the Odessa control room. We can't get through. The flak is too heavy. The remaining 3 FPVs try a pop-up attack, climbing high to dive almost vertically onto targets. Against the dark sky, they stand out like flies on glass. A Russian soldier shoulders an Igla M pads. He barely needs a lock. The warm batteries and motors are enough. The missile doesn't have to hit them directly. Its proximity fuse air bursts close. The concussive wave snaps all 3 out of the sky like dead birds. 7 of 8 gone. Only FPV-8 remains. The last pilot is sweating through his gloves. He abandons the primary objective of the pump house and looks for any leverage. He spots a fuel truck parked too close to the foam station. "Improvise," he mutters. Instead of diving from above, he threads his drone under a lattice of pipe racks, skimming inches above the asphalt to avoid the ZU-23's line of fire. At the last second, he pops up in front of the truck's cab and detonates. The truck erupts, spraying burning diesel over the foam station equipment. It's not a kill, but it's a wound. Hoses scorched, valves warped, crews forced back. Layer 2's scoreline, however, is brutal. 8 FPVs expended for a single damaged truck and a partially degraded foam system. The LNG tanks stand untouched, and now the 6 Mura motherships are closing fast on a shoreline that is wide awake and furious. In Odessa, the Ukrainian commander slams his fist onto the table. Final wave, no more second chances, don't miss. By 6 a.m., the big screen shows a scene from a modern Dante's Inferno. 3 ZU-23 truck mounts are throwing continuous streams of tracer fire into the sea, creating overlapping impact zones that would shred any conventional approach. The commander grips his microphone. "We don't have the firepower to win this gunfight, so we don't fight it. We cheat. All FPVs switch to breacher protocol. Mura boats, ramming speed." This is the Hail Mary. The last wave of 8 FPVs doesn't fan out to hunt individual targets. They launch and immediately form a tight sacrificial wedge directly in front of the Mura boats, flying barely above the waves. Their objective is not to kill anything directly. It is to soak up attention, break firing rhythms, and punch micro holes in the wall of fire. They're aerial flak jackets. On shore, a ZU-23 gunner tracks the approaching cluster and buries his firing pedal. Twin rivers of red-hot rounds march toward the lead boat. FPV-1 doesn't try to physically block bullets. That's impossible. Instead, it executes a pre-planned suicide airburst 10 meters in front of the gun position. The small warhead detonates mid-air, throwing a concussive shockwave and flash in the gunners' faces. They flinch, duck, and instinctively pull off the trigger. For 5 long heartbeats, the wall of lead disappears. That gap is all the swarm needs. FPVs 2 and 3 immediately break formation and dive straight into the ZU-23 gun trucks themselves. Their warheads are small, but they don't need to blow the vehicles apart, just incapacitate the crews and shred sights and shields. Both drones smash into the Gaunt mounts and detonate. Shrapnel peppers the positions, forcing the surviving gunners to drop behind whatever cover they can find. Another 10 seconds of silence. In a gun duel measured in milliseconds, that's an eternity. While human eyes are blinded by flash and smoke, physics comes calling elsewhere. Remember the fuel truck that was only damaged in the second wave? Russian crews believed they had extinguished the blaze. They didn't notice that burning diesel had trickled into open cable trenches running beneath the main control room, the nerve center for the emergency shutoff valves feeding the tanks. As the air defenses stutter back to life, a single stray tracer round arcs into one of those trenches. Fumes that have been building ignite in a rolling flash underground. Cables and hydraulic lines burn through in seconds. In the control room, indicator boards cascade from green to red. Valve failure, pressure critical. The station commander screams for a manual override, but it's already too late. The
The shutoff valves are physically stuck open. Overhead, FPVs 4, 5, and 6 ignore the chaos and hunt for the jugular, the loading arms. These massive articulated steel booms carry cryogenic LNG at minus 162 degrees Celsius between the storage tanks and tankers at the pier. If those lines are ruptured under pressure, the results will dwarf any single warhead. FPV-4 takes a glancing hit from small arms fire, tumbles, and vanishes into the sea. FPV-5 presses on. Its shaped charge warhead hits squarely at the elbow joint of a loading arm. The jet punches a clean hole in the cryogenic steel. Super cold liquid roars out and hits humid morning air. It flashes to vapor, expanding roughly 600-fold in volume. A massive rolling white cloud of LNG air mixture, heavier than air, begins to spread silently across the asphalt and over the water like a ghostly tsunami. It isn't fire, yet. It's a fuel air bomb the size of a stadium, waiting for a spark. 6:05 a.m. The 6 Mura motherships charge toward shore at nearly 50 miles per hour, running straight into the spreading vapor cloud. Their cameras show nothing but a whiteout, sensors blinded by refracted light. Pilots in Odessa are now flying on GPS, muscle memory, and adrenaline. On land, Russian defenders, terrified of the creeping gas blanket, fire wildly into the fog. A lucky RPG round catches Mura 1. The boat detonates 200 yards offshore. Its 300-kilogram warhead creates a shockwave that cracks windows in the nearby town, but the terminal holds. Mura 2 clips a submerged concrete block and tears its hull open, sinking so fast the warhead doesn't arm. 4 boats remain, 4 chances to finish the job. Mura 3 and Mura 4 don't go for the tanks directly. Instead, they slam their warheads into the supporting piers beneath the manifold where multiple LNG lines converge. 2 near-simultaneous blasts pulverize reinforced concrete. The pier sags and collapses, tearing more pipes free. Now, thousands of tons of LNG are pouring directly onto the water, turning the harbor surface into a roiling, supercooled cauldron of explosive vapor. Then, Mura 5 comes in. The pilot doesn't target pipes at all. He aims for the ignition source. Driving at full throttle, he rams the boat up the rocky revetment like a ramp, launching it into the air in a sickening arc. It crashes directly into the electrical substation feeding the loading pumps and much of the facility. The 660-pound warhead doesn't just damage equipment, it obliterates the substation in a shower of molten copper and steel. Arcing high-voltage lines meet the low-lying LNG cloud. In that instant, the battlefield stops belonging to humans. Physics takes over. What follows is less an explosion than a thermal event. The ignited gas cloud blossoms into a fireball that rises 2.5 miles into the dawn sky, visible across the entire eastern Black Sea. The overpressure wave flattens Zu-23 trucks, nearby buildings, and anything soft, vehicles, defenses, men like soda cans. The Russian gunners don't have time to be afraid, they simply vanish. The radiant heat at the core of the blast climbs past 1,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to soften the outer steel skins of the main storage tanks. The LNG inside them boils violently, pressure spikes, and one by one the tanks fail in BLEVE, boiling liquid expanding vapor explosions. Tank 1 ruptures, then Tank 2, then Tank 3. Each detonation feeds the inferno, turning the facility into a self-sustaining plasma cutter, ripping through everything within a kilometer radius. In Odessa's control room, every feed goes white. The signal doesn't die because of Russian jamming, it dies because cameras, antennas, drones, boats, and much of the harbor have ceased to exist in solid form. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then, from the back of the room, someone exhales a single word: checkmate. When the sun finally rises over the Sea of Azov, the Temryuk LNG terminal is not damaged, it is gone. 30 separate explosions in just over 2 minutes have converted roughly 70% of the region's export capacity into twisted, molten scrap. With the foam trucks destroyed or disabled and much of the suppression system offline, the residual fires will burn for 3 days and nights, a towering humiliation on the horizon visible from occupied Crimea. But this isn't just a spectacular fire, it's a strategic dissection carried out in 4 layers. First, the economic guillotine. Direct infrastructure loss runs to around $650 million, but the real pain is the loss of throughput and trust. With the terminal offline, Russia bleeds perhaps $3 million a day in missed exports, and even when metal is rebuilt, reliability suffers. In energy markets, reliability is currency. Russia's credit rating as a supplier just cratered. Second, the propaganda collapse. Moscow's official line blames an electrical short circuit, but in the age of smartphones and Telegram, that lie lasts minutes. Civilians post footage of FPV swarms, sea-domes, and layered detonations. Since when does a short circuit explode 30 times from the sea? One viral comment reads. The strategic nightmare. By strapping FPV quadcopters onto sea-domes, Ukraine has essentially invented a disposable mini-aircraft carrier. The once safe Sea of Azov, ringed by Russian territory, has become a kill box where any pier, tanker, or depot within a few dozen miles of shoreline is at risk. To counter it, the Kremlin faces an excruciating choice: either strip air defense assets from
frontline units to hardened ports and energy nodes, or leave the economy vulnerable to more Temryuks. Protect the wallet and the frontline thins. Protect the front line and the wallet burns. Finally, the return on investment. Ukraine may have spent on the order of $4.5 million in boats, drones, munitions, and engineering to execute this operation. In return, it wiped out hundreds of millions in infrastructure and choked off a vital export artery. That cost ratio doesn't just hurt, it terrifies planners on every general staff. The bigger lesson is brutally simple. Modern war is no longer about who has the biggest ship or the thickest armor. It's about who can stitch cheap sensors, off-the-shelf drones, and clever tactics into a kill chain faster than the other side can adapt. Somewhere in Odessa, a 25-year-old operator with a $50 controller just helped take apart an empire's energy node using little more than plastic, fishing line, and physics. That isn't just combat, it edges into art. And this, in our scenario, is just the prototype. Next week, we'll walk through how the same sea drone plus FPV combo hunts a 120,000-ton oil tanker in the open ocean, and what that means for every safe shipping lane left on the map. Don't miss it. Hit like, subscribe, and step with us a little further into the future of warfare.